Darren Aronofsky en el Festival Internacional de Cine.
Buenas tardes. Muy buenas tardes. Es un honor para el Festival de Cine de Guanajuato presentar Magistral, ¿sí me escuchan? Sí. Del señor Darren Aronofsky. Y nuestro moderador esta tarde es Daniel Kendall. Un aplauso para Daniel, porque la verdad está Darren aquí gracias al esfuerzo de Daniel. Les recuerdo que esta conferencia está en inglés, hay traducción simultánea. Les invitamos a los que necesiten que pasen aquí al exterior de la puerta para la traducción. Muy bien, pues arrancamos. Welcome. Enjoy.
Gracias.
Well, good afternoon.
What exactly am I sitting?
I think you're going to be like melted to that later.
Don't know where to sit. Okay.
You're the product of two public school teachers. What influence did they have on your early learning process and your curiosity about life, science, and history?
Well, having school teachers for parents is a great thing. I was thinking about them today. What's the building we passed that says Al Maestro?
Creo que es la oficial, la normal.
Anyway, it was nice to see a statue, and I was thinking about my parents and how important teachers are to us, and I think back over my life and I think about the different influential teachers that I've had. There was 4 or 5 of them in my life that, definitely sent me on the right course, and I think having parents that value education it's a great gift to be born with.
And as a teenager, you had an opportunity to study at the School for Field Studies in Kenya and Alaska. And then you studied film and social anthropology at Harvard. How did this combination of different fields shape your worldview and your work?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know. There's been a lot of influences. I think when I was in high school, I stumbled on an organization called School for Field Studies, which takes kids and puts them into real science field, real ecology, and I went to Kenya with them, and then I went to Alaska with them, and I think that was it was very, very expansive, and when you're a kid, I grew up in a very urban place, growing up in the city in Brooklyn, and when getting out of Brooklyn and actually seeing trees was a big deal for me. And so it sort of just changed the whole perspective of the world for me. So, and then once again, education for me has been something I've been blessed with, and being allowed to see a lot of parts of the world is a big part of that.
Well, why are you drawn to ancient cultures?
Very hard questions. Why am I drawn to ancient cultures? Well, I don't know. I think most people are to some extent. That just people have, things come before you. And I'll tell you a story that I usually don't ever tell, and it actually has to do with Mexico. When I was I was talking about it last night. When I was 18, me and a couple of friends bought a car for $1 and 2 cases of beer off of a mechanic friend, and we just started driving. And then we suddenly were at the border of Texas and Mexico, and we just said, okay, let's keep driving. And then we sort of drove all the way past Tampico and Veracruz down into the south, and then we passed Palenque, and we saw our first Mayan ruin, and then we just continued to keep going. We said, okay, let's go east until we hit the water. And, at the bottom of, I don't know the name of the road, but at the bottom of the Yucatan, there's that road that goes straight across, west-east. It's basically where Mexico dips down, and then it goes straight across. And it's actually a road that's on top of probably pretty close to what the Mayan road was. And on either side of the road are a bunch of small Mayan trading posts that were there, and you can stop and check them out. And we stopped and checked out a bunch of them. And one of them was just like a very basic trading village, that had 4 temples, and in the middle was a plaza. And the sun was setting, and in the middle of the plaza was these huge ant colonies with huge ants pouring into the jungle and pulling leaves and different things back into the colony. And I realized that here, where there used to be a major civilization that lived in these huge cities, and it had sort of been taken over by these ants, and it was just a sort of big moment and insight into sort of our connection with the animal kingdom and how things go back and forth and how different civilizations can go. And I don't know what it meant, but it was a big moment for me. So,
do you think that the modern humanity has somehow kind of lost its connection to where we've all come from in terms of...
Where do you get these questions from? Jeez. Anybody want to talk about filmmaking? All right. Okay. Have we lost our connection to our... where are you from? No, I'm just kidding. So let's see. Have we lost our connection? I mean, I don't know. That's a very big question. So, and I don't even know how to begin to answer it. But maybe, I mean, the fountain was a little bit about how in Western society we've lost connection with old people, and our connection to growing old. So maybe there's something to that, but I don't know. I mean, people are doing all different types of stuff. You're probably right. I mean, most people are probably thinking about Paris Hilton than they are the ancient Greeks, or I guess no one's really thinking about Paris. It's all Kim Kardashian now. So, but
Northwest.
But I don't know if Kim Kardashian represents some type of ancient civilization or something. But maybe there's some type of connection to that. So I don't know. I tried. Okay, let's see. Come on. Let's go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you think that any film has come close?
Don't start talking about film now. Come on.
All right, fine.
Keep the weird ones coming. He's like, jump forward. Okay, Pi. Why was it in black and white?
Do you believe in any form of esoteric arts or mysticism?
Esoteric art. Do I believe in it? What does that mean? Do I believe it's...
Do you believe? Do you practice? Do you indulge? Do you read a lot about it?
Okay, esoteric arts and mysticism. I mean, look, I like to Om in yoga class a lot, I don't know if that makes me a mystic, but I think there's something, there's, definitely on the fringe of, what Western science, calls what's real and what's not. There's always very interesting things, and I like to play around with those ideas, and I mean, you can see them in the films where basically we push science right to the edge and sort of try to blend it with some form of spirituality and mysticism, and how they fuse is definitely where a lot of my work sort of plays with.
So this was meant as the segue into film, but is there any film that's been made to date that you think even comes close to explaining our reality or our reason for being on this earth? Do you think that anyone's achieved that?
Well, I think any good film does that. You know, that's what makes good film, is when you suddenly are connected to the emotion of another human being that you don't know. I mean, I always talk about the magic of filmmaking is that you can be transported into the head of a 6-year-old girl in Iran and go through her journey, or like Amor last year, be with an older couple and completely connect with their journey at 80, trying to come to terms with what they are. I mean, that for me is the magic of film, and why film is such an interesting medium, because it just translates all over the world. You know, if you succeed in making a good film and telling a good story and representing real people, you know, you can connect with people all over the planet, you know. You could also blow up a lot of shit and connect with a lot of people too. So, you know, I'm more interested in sort of when the human spirit is captured on film, and then it really works for people everywhere.
How long have you known Ari Handel?
You want to tell people who Ari is?
Ari is a writer and a producer, and he's collaborated with Darren on nearly all of his projects, as far as I can tell.
Well, Ari was a roommate in college, and when I finished college, I asked a different roommate, who's the smartest guy we met in 4 years at Harvard, and he said Ari. So I was like, And then Ari went off and got a PhD in neuroscience, and when he was finishing that up, he was sort of expressing to me how much he kind of was sick of academics and wanted to do something else. And we used to always, you know, for fun, he would sit around with us and talk about ideas, and generally in something that would take us weeks and weeks, he would figure out in about 5 minutes. So when he was sort of bored, I offered him the forbidden fruit, and I said, come work here in Hollywood. And so he just joined up, and then me and Ari went on to collaborate on the script for The Fountain, and then we just finished writing Noah together. So, and he's just now hanging out a lot.
What are the types of themes that you guys are both interested in?
I think me and Ari are very different, and that's a good thing, because I think we've grown closer together, but when we first started writing, we came from very different places. He's a scientist, like full-on scientist, so he's very logical, and I think I bring more of an interest into people, and so the combination works out pretty well.
You mentioned The Fountain, which played last night in the Escalinatas of the University of Guanajuato. Have you ever considered doing a film about Hernán Cortés or any of the conquistadors? You know, when I was working on The Fountain, I read all the conquistadors, and I love the story of Cabeza de la Vaca. You know Cabeza de la Vaca? Is he famous here in Mexico? Más o menos? Lots. But there was a Spanish film that was made about him that's excellent. It's really a very good film, and it has a lot of mysticism in it. And I think it would be amazing to do a big conquistador film, but you know, it's amazing that when you read, what was his name? Bernal Diaz wrote the book, The Conquest of Mexico. The Bernal Diaz book is an amazing read. It's something I think you read down here, but it doesn't doesn't really show up on the curriculum in New York City. So when I read it, I just couldn't believe, you know, how the whole conquest went down. It was really fascinating. And so, I mean, it would be a dream of a filmmaker to remake Teotihuacan and to try and imagine what that looked like. It would be quite an adventure. Has there been a great conquistador made in Mexico film? I don't think so.
Is there a Hernán Cortés film? Is it good?
No.
Yeah. I didn't see it. I'll check it out. How many years ago? The movie, not when the conquest happened. Unless they had news cameras back then, shooting the whole thing.
So back to your films, all your characters seem to have these strong obsessions that drive them towards self-destruction. Do you think it's impossible?
What are you talking about? But go ahead, assuming that's true.
Do you think it's impossible to achieve perfection without destroying yourself?
Okay. Do you think it's possible to achieve perfection? Well, I don't think it's possible. I mean, the question about what is perfection. I think that's the better question. And
Isn't the question though?
You know, I don't know. That's a really. I mean, you're giving away all my movies. That's what they're all about. So I can't really give you the answer to that. So next question. You want to mix it up a little bit and get a little bit from the audience and stuff and see what's going on? Can we do that? Can we break the rules? Just for a second. Not to attack you, Daniel. Thank you. We'll take a few questions from the audience, and when it slows down, we'll go back to Daniel's questions, if that's okay. Sorry. All right. Can we put some lights up out there a little bit so I could see people? Is that possible? Oh, am I taking his mic?
No,
there
no,
we
no.
go.
Le ponemos luces y los voluntarios que traen micrófonos están
Sorry,
aquí
Daniel. You upset with me?
para Q&A. A ver, voluntarios.
Hola, hola.
Levanta la mano, voluntarios. Levanta la mano, pregunta.
Here,
Voluntarios con micrófono.
here.
Hola.
Hi, hola. My name is Jonathan.
Mucho gusto.
Thank you. Bueno, I don't like the term of being a fan of someone, because I don't think that represent what my thoughts are about your work or anything. I love to think about in your work like represents the teaching or the professional, like if you are
It's okay. Give him a chance. He's doing well.
yeah, I do my best.
I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Well, no, I don't want to talk about talk in Spanish, because I want to talk in English with you because it's your language, and I want to.
Thank you.
I want to make a dialogue with you, because
Okay.
I think your work represents a dialogue with the other, with me, and I think in you like a teacher or a master. And I had 3 points, 3 comments, or 3 questions. I'm not sure. 1. I saw Kubrick's Killer's Kiss, and I saw one connection in one scene. The dancer ballet in Killer's Kiss is amazing, and I saw Black Swan, and the scene of the beginning in the film is, if not the same, for me it's like a wink or gag. It's a hypothesis or wherever. It's like I study the cinema, searching these connections or these inspirations. 2,
Okay.
and I want to talk about that, if my hypothesis is real or...
Okay.
I dream about that, and that
Con una pregunta.
Ah,
Gracias.
you see,
Regresa
they're
el
going to shoot
micrófono.
you down. Yeah, I'll give you one more. You get one more. You get to choose 2 or 3.
yeah.
Make it good. We got a lot of people.
Yes, thank you. 3.
Number 3.
I said that I considered you that like a master for me,
Gracias.
and I wondering how is possible to get a sign of P that you signed to me.
Oh,
P,
no worries. We'll do that later.
and a picture. Is
Oh,
that
you were going to
because-
waste your third question on an autograph? It sucks.
Yes.
All right. Okay, no
Yes.
problem. All right, so you could bring that. I'll sign it right now. You bring it up. But no one else, just one, just because this guy went first. So, about Killer's Kiss, you know, I've seen it, but I may have seen it once 15, 20 years ago. ¿Cómo se llama?
To Jonathan and my brother Jacob, please.
Lo siento. No problem. So, I saw Killer's Kiss very long time ago. I actually don't even remember that there was a ballet scene in it. But so it may have been an influence. It may have been an influence because I saw it 20 years ago, and most of Kubrick's work burns deep into your brain, and so unconsciously maybe I tapped it. But you know, really, when we did that opening scene in Black Swan, it would be really random because how that worked was, you know, we had a choreographer, a man named Benjamin Millepied, and he worked out the piece, and then me and Maddie, my DP, longtime Maddie, just would go with a little handheld video camera, and we'd dance with Natalie to try and figure out how the camera moved through the scene. So we kind of improvised off of what Benjamin presented to us, and then we would say, oh, Benjamin, the dancers are too tight, too close together here. Can you rework something? And then he would rework it, and then eventually we would make the move and then decide, you know, how it looked. And then on the day when we lit it, it was just what we could do at the time. So I think films often end up looking alike because you have a limited amount of technical options and possibilities, and, you know, people end up making similar choices sometimes. So that's where it would have come from. Próximo.
Here. Hi.
Hola.
Hi, I'm Susie. In your films, you always represent lives and professions like ballet or a writer. And I just want to know, how much time do you take to investigate all these professions or these kinds of lives before making this movie?
That's a good question. It's very, I mean, that's the best part of the job, is that you get to submerge yourself in lots of different worlds and try to figure it out as well as you can. It's kind of like every film takes about 2-3 years to make, and so you get an education over those 2-3 years of that world. You know, so I didn't know anything really about the behind the scenes in wrestling, or I didn't know anything of behind the scenes in ballet. You know, so a lot of it was spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. I was kind of overwhelmed with the task to try and understand what Swan Lake is and what it means. So I spent a very long time just watching it and listening to the music. I didn't grow up with classical music, so I didn't really understand it. But I just listened to it as much as I could. So I still don't really understand it. I just sort of feel it. And then I kind of interpreted for me what the story of Swan Lake meant. And luckily, ballet is abstract enough of a form that it can take in different interpretations and different takes on it. So we were able to sort of put the story we wanted to tell about identity and about losing yourself into the story of Swan Lake.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
En su película El Cisne Negro,
Allá.
en la película El Cisne Negro, usted aborda un clásico de la danza donde se mezclan realidad y ficción. ¿Tuvo usted una influencia de Carmen de Carlos Saura? In your film The Black Swan, you mix reality and fiction, and I wonder that in a classical about dance, you had any influence in Carmen by Carlos Saura?
By Carlos.
Saura.
Oh, he's the one who makes the wonderful dance movies like Tango.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We looked
at. I didn't know about his work, but while working on the movie, people told me about his films, and I watched them, and they're beautiful films. You know, I'm more interested in story, and he's much more interested in the dance. But it's very interesting how he brought story into dance. But I thought his stuff was really beautiful, and I think we all looked at it, and meaning me and my entire crew, we all looked at it, we talked about it, you know, but his stuff is definitely set in the abstract world of a dance studio. And we were trying to tell a true, something that was more real, set in the real world, that crossed over into the fantasy of the dance world.
Thank you.
Gracias. Hello, Darren.
Hola.
Here. Right here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is Angel. Now, on the movie Pi, you talk about some Jewish subjects like the Tetragrammaton. On the fountain, you talk about Adam and Eve and something, well, obviously Mayan mythology like the Popol Vuh. And now you're doing Noah's Ark. So would one be wrong to consider that religion is something that moves you?
Well, I think deeply, the thing about these old stories and, you know, these stories about our origin, I've always found it really interesting how, even though we're people from all over the place that were separated for a very long time, there were stories that were being told that were, in many ways, had a lot of connections. And I think that's always been an inspiration for me, is that anywhere you go in the world, people do art, people do music, people do dance. And so the similarities between all the different cultures has been something I've wanted to emphasize in my work. And so I've looked at all the different origin stories from people across the planet and tried to find connections, and then tried to weave them together to try to tell, you know, to try and show people that, you know, there's a lot of connections here, and actually what's more interesting is the similarities as opposed to the differences between us all. You know, you look at the Mayan origin story, there are definite themes and elements that are very similar to the Judeo-Christian, and the separation is, you know, tens of thousands of years between those origin stories. So the fact that those stories are being told over and over and over again, there's something about that is inside us that makes us human. So I think it's something interesting to look at and to try and connect it to us as present-day modern people, and there is something that connects us to those stories because we've been being told them since we were tiny, and for some reason those stories have stuck around for so long. So there's something that's connecting to us. So I think that connection is what I'm interested in, is what makes us connected to those stories for so long.
And have you ever listened to Philip Glass' Fifth Symphony?
Maybe.
Well, because it has a lot of subjects that you carry in your movies throughout the whole symphony, so I would personally recommend it because it has a lot of subjects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hola.
Hi, Darren, here in the front.
Acá. Ay, hola.
Hola. We're going to do some questions up there, or what? A little bit? Okay, good.
Ok, hola, mi pregunta será en español. Mi nombre es Pamela, soy estudiante de Filosofía e Historia de las Ideas en la Universidad Autónoma de la Ciudad de México. Lo menciono porque quiero aplaudirte el trabajo que haces con tu cine, abordando elementos como la transgresión, provocando delirios. Y mi pregunta va en relación con tú actualmente, ¿cuál sería el sentido que tiene tu arte cinematográfico? Y la otra es, ligándome con una frase del GIFF, que en las presentaciones se da, que es más cine, por favor. La otra pregunta sería, ¿para qué más cine? Te lo pregunto con toda honestidad.
I'm going to need a little help.
La primera pregunta es, ¿cuál es el sentido del arte cinematográfico de Darren Aronofsky?
What is the art of my cinematography?
¿Cuál es el sentido? Y si lo hay también.
You have a question, Daniel? We'll go back to Daniel. I'm feeling sorry for him. Instead of sitting here. What is the feeling of my cinematography? I don't know. I mean, look, when I do a movie, I can't tell you what gets me interested in the story. It's usually something about the characters, something about, something about the way it feels that it just keeps me awake and it keeps me thinking about it. For me, all of my films have taken a very, very long development. Black Swan we worked on for over 10 years. The Wrestler was an idea since I was a young kid. Noah has been an idea since I was a teenager. Pi was a collection of all the different ideas I've been thinking about for 10 years. And so it's kind of a marathon. There's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different projects that are floating around that I'm thinking about working on, but the ones that keep coming back to me are the ones that I end up doing. And I don't know what that feeling is. It's just, I just sort of create a story and then I think about a way of telling it, and then there's always the limitations of money because you never have enough money to do what you want to do. Especially when you do something that's different and original, there's always less money. And so then you have to sort of think within that scenario of having less money, what is the best story I can tell and how to tell it. That's why a film like The Wrestler is vastly different than The Fountain, because I had very little money to make The Wrestler, and so I had to figure out a visual style that worked with it. So hopefully you want as someone who works on that, I think anyone who works, making something to share that, maybe people call it artistic, you want to have a feeling, a connection, and you want all the pieces to sort of be connected. Yet you don't want to be repetitive. You don't want to make the same exact movie over and over again. So I don't know. I mean, that's all I could say. You're just sort of working on it, and then you also. I mean, I've been lucky to work a lot of the times with similar crew, and so those people are going to bring very, very different feelings to it. After we finished The Fountain, when I made The Wrestler, I actually didn't work with anyone that was the same. I had a new producer, I had a new cinematographer, I had a new production designer, I had a new costume designer, a new editor. So everything was different except for Clint Mansell, who was the same composer. But it was how do you create a vision together to make something? Am I answering your question? You look very confused. It's okay, I'm confused too.
No. Me parece, no sé, Daniel, si pudieras ayudarme, me parece que en la traducción lo que yo me refería es como existencialmente, el sentido de la existencia, o una cosa así. Me parece que puede haber como un error de traducción, no sé.
Yeah. Are you guys trading questions here? No.
Es la
You came by yourself?
dificultad del lenguaje, uno tiene que padecer, pero
Okay.
bueno.
So existentially.
Sense. Okay.
Un sentido.
Ajá, eso.
Existencial.
Essence.
The essence. La esencia.
Sense.
What's the essence of your film?
No. Bueno, mira, igual para que pase el que sigue. La siguiente pregunta era esta, ¿no? De ¿para qué más cine? Es la siguiente pregunta que me ligaba con la frase del GIF.
Okay. So our slogan here is Más cine, por favor. So why more film?
Why more film? Why more film as opposed to what? Less film? What do you mean? Why more?
Uno ya toma el cine como una cosa que está dada y en realidad no se detiene como a reflexionar en distintos horizontes. Yo digo que ¿para qué más cine en Darren Aronofsky?
Why more film from Darren Aronofsky?
You mean why should I keep working? Is that what you mean? I don't know.
The man's got to eat.
What she's saying, I believe,
Yes.
is if our slogan here is Más cine, por favor.
Yeah.
In your world, is there a need to make more film? I mean, in your world, do you think that what she just said is it's not that easy to get films made?
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, yeah, I
in
see.
your world,
You know,
Is
look,
it a call to arms?
I would love to do something else. You're studying philosophy at the university? I don't know. Maybe I should do that because it is really hard and it's a lot of work. But unfortunately, I have very few other skills. So I'm kind of stuck now. I got to keep making them if I want to eat. But no, I mean it's fun to. I mean, once again, it goes back to the second question we had, which is it's a chance to basically learn about a different world and to basically learn about new things. So, and there's something exciting about learning. I think the youngest old people I meet are the curious ones. And so I think that's the most important thing to hold on to is curiosity. And luckily, filmmaking allows you to be curious. You have to be curious to keep making new films.
Hi, Darren, here in the front. Darren, here.
You want to hold on, Daniel? You ask a question. Yeah.
May I do a
Hold on
question?
1 second. You're next.
May I have
whoever.
one here in the front,
Yep.
in the middle?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Espera por un momento. Espera.
que le aguantes un segundo.
Okay, so you mentioned working with Clint Mansell on every film. What's the process there, working with him?
I just left Clint yesterday or 2 days ago. I was with Clint in Los Angeles. Clint Mansell is the composer of all the movies. Everyone knows Clint, and it's great. So, you guys should invite Clint down here, Sarah. You should invite Clint down here.
You can help us.
He does these great concerts now where he has like a 10-piece orchestra and he does these great shows. So maybe in the next couple of years he'll come down.
2014.
It's really good. But working with Clint it's like working with a wife you divorced twice. It's always really hard, but it's very beautiful, the outcome. And that's because it's like he is a perfectionist, and he likes everything to be original and unique. But the problem with that is it takes so much time, but the product is always incredible. And always some of the best days of making a movie is when Clint's stuff shows up and you lay it into picture. It's one of the most exciting parts. Since the beginning, it's always been that way.
And
Go ahead.
Does he start performing? Does he start composing based upon a script, or
Sometimes he does based on the script. Usually he reads the script because we've been working together for so long. He'll read the script and then he'll sketch out a few ideas. And actually, some of those original ideas actually end up being in the final film. So that initial instinct is often a good thing. And
do you read music, or does he have to perform it for you, or give you a...
Oh no, he sends it with some instrumentation. It's all done on all with synthesized music, so you have to use your imagination about how it's going to expand into a full orchestra. And then Clint always does that a little bit differently than other people. So, there's always a lot of reinvention.
Cool. Shall we go to the audience? And Danny, the translator, is asking you to please put on your earpiece. Thank you.
For me?
No, Danny. No, have Danny listen so he can translate it to you.
I thought he speaks Spanish, no?
Well, so did I. Obviously not. Too many parties. Y regresamos a la pregunta aquí en el centro. Danos un segundo que lo conecten a Danny.
Okay, may I ask? Well, Darren, first of all, I want to thank you. I studied to be a film director one day, and I want to tell you that Black Swan was my first homework picture I saw in a theater to analyze and that, and I'm so glad I've seen you here. I have two questions, too easy. I want to know which is Darren Aronofsky's obsession, the one that gives you nightmares, and I want to know if your whole filmography was going to be deleted from the world's history, which one would you save and why? Thank you.
Well, I think all movies will be erased eventually. It's just a matter of time until we're all gone. But I don't know which one would I save. I don't know. It's a very hard question because there's so many different things. People talk about their films as children, and there is some truth to that. I do like my child more than I like my films. But I think, for a long time it was The Fountain. That was the one I put most, we worked the hardest on and spent the most spirit on. But then I realized there's something great about not working so hard sometimes. And there's sometimes good things come out of being a little bit more relaxed. And that was a big lesson for me when I worked on The Wrestler. Just because I couldn't work that hard on The Wrestler because, Mickey showed up to set 3-4 hours late every day. So, it was. So I don't know which one I would save. And there was a first part of that question, but somehow I forgot what it was. So, I know what it was. I know what it was. I just want to move on. So next question.
Siguiente pregunta.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Alejandro. Actually, I was looking at Pi, and there was a part in the movie where a person, an old man, was in the train like crazy and singing. And then I went to Black Swan, and Nina came into the train, and there was the same guy, old man, crazy, looking at her. Why does the same person in different movies in the same place appears? Why?
So that you could ask that question.
So you don't even know why?
I just, Stanley Herman, who plays that character, is an actor I ran into when I was in film school. He came in and he was a guy from Brooklyn, 30, 40 years, maybe 50, 60 years ahead of me. And I just liked his personality. And so I wrote him a part called The Pervert in my student film. And so I've sort of used him as the pervert. And he's also the guy who screams ass to ass in Requiem for a Dream. So he's just a funny guy, and it's always fun to have him around, so I always write him something so that he's around. But actually, that scene in Pi, he sang a song for I Only Have Eyes for You, which is an old standard. And it actually saved me that moment because there was a company interested in buying Pi before we went to Sundance when we were desperate and hungry, and they were offering us a terrible deal. And the only problem was that song, we found out after we recorded it, it wasn't in the public domain. After 75 years, the copyright's gone and it becomes public domain and you can sing it. But it was like 4 or 5 years away from being free. And they wanted $25,000 for us to use it, which was more than the budget of the movie. And so the person who was trying to buy it from us didn't want me to use it. They wanted me to replace it. And I was like, absolutely not. I love it. And so we didn't replace it, and we said basically F you to those people. And we went to Sundance and ended up making a much better deal. So there you go. Stanley saved me.
Thank you.
Bueno,
Hola.
hola, Darren. Yo voy a
Hey, can
hablar
we
en
get a
español.
mic up there to the top
Here.
floor? You got a mic up
Here,
there?
here.
I know, I see, but maybe there is one up there.
Sorry.
But so those people can ask, but please.
Bueno, voy a hablar en español. Tengo dos preguntas.
Okay, hold on.
Bien. Dos. Una, he sabido que has rechazado varios proyectos un poco más comerciales porque tu cine no es tan comercial o convencional. ¿Por qué lo has hecho? Una. Y la otra tengo tus 3 actores favoritos.
It's a good question. Well, look, I've always had interests to make big films that are entertaining, because I grew up in the, I started really becoming aware of films in the early 80s when the blockbuster began. So Steven Spielberg's and George Lucas's movies were a big influence on me, and I've always wanted to have an audience like that. That's always been a dream to make, tell big stories that everyone relates to. Because I think when you tell stories, you want people to like them. But ultimately, you tell stories that you feel deep in your heart, So I've tried to tell some of these bigger stories, but when I've had the opportunity to really tell something that's in my heart, because of how difficult filmmaking is, I've gone with the stuff that's more passionate to me, and that's worked out really successfully for me, luckily. And hopefully the new film Noah will combine those two, because it's a big idea with a big movie stars, and the story I think is very universal. So I hope people will connect with it in a big way. And then what was my 3 favorite actors? Is that it? That I've worked with or I haven't worked with? Either. Well, it's definitely going to be people I worked with, because I don't know people I haven't worked with. And I can't start picking 3 out of all of them, because someone's going to get pissed. But, for me, every actor I've had a great time with. I've been really lucky working with, incredible actors. ¿Cómo? Vincent Cassel, yeah, he's great. He's great. And he's a good friend, and he's a great guy, and he's very relaxed. I mean, I could tell you about the different actors and stuff, but they're all beautiful in different ways. So, I got to be political.
Voy a pedir a los voluntarios que tomen uno de los micrófonos y sube por favor al balcón. Al terminar esa pregunta, este micrófono se sube al balcón, por favor.
Hi, over here.
¿Dónde?
Here.
Where?
Oh, okay. Hello.
Yeah, hi. My question is about your technique, because I've experienced a deeper appreciation of your film since I started practicing the contemporary dance technique, which is based on ballet dance moves. And I am kind of obsessed with this scene when Natalie is spinning around on one leg, and it looks blurry as her head turns. So how do you get your technique to look really from the eye of a dancer?
Well, I think that just comes from what I've always been doing in my film work. Is I'm very interested in subjective filmmaking, which is putting the audience in the character's head. So I've used a lot of POV, which is point of view, which is basically what the person is seeing. And then sometimes I manipulate that and to sort of show what the mental state of the person is. So it became really a very easy idea for us that we would show what it was like from the point of view of the dancer. And technically all we did is we took the camera and spun it really fast. It was actually harder to do than you think, because in today's modern filmmaking there's lots of cables that are hanging off of it, and also to get the weight right. But we just ended up spinning the cameras, and a really good cameraman would spin it, and when it came around he would catch it and then spin it again. So it was just that type of technique.
Hello.
Here.
Over here.
Yeah.
Here.
Hola.
Hola. First of all, I wanted to tell you that Wrecking for a Dream is one of my favorite films ever. I have this big poster in my room with a big eye.
That's your problem.
I just love it. It's really, really, really good. I wanted to
Thank
tell
you,
you that.
thank you.
I'm a big fan. And, well, my question is, according to you, what are the things in the world of filmmaking that have changed when you started making movies to now? And what is your advice to young filmmakers to do? Or what,
That's a good
path
question.
to choose?
Well, it's funny, we make this joke all the time. We talk about it because when we made P, we didn't have cell phones. But how many people in the room don't remember a world without cell phones, is the question. But we literally didn't have cell phones. So, you would tell people, hey, you got to meet somewhere, and then you would actually meet there. People would actually be there. And if you were late, you were fucking late. You couldn't call and say, I'm running late. You were late, and it sucked. So they were like, I don't think people really meet anymore. They just sort of call up and go, oh, where are you? And they go, oh, I'm over there. And then you see each other. So, but that was strange. We didn't even have we just maybe had walkie-talkies. And they worked maybe 25, 30 feet, so that was it. So that was weird. It's been a radical change. Requiem for a Dream let's talk about Pi first. Pi, there was no digital effects. So the title sequence, when the Pi comes up, that was done on a cheap, I think it was a Macintosh actually, and we actually filmed it off the screen of the Macintosh.
Wow.
And that's how it became it. And it was just some guy who liked to program with his computer. But we talked about at the time, we wanted to go out and we had the whole idea of marketing it by believing there was like that Max Cohen, the main character, was a real person. So we went into these weird math Usenet groups, which were early internet, and we started putting in like fake postings about this guy, Max Cohen, to try and start this marketing campaign, which has happened now in so many other films. They've tried to, what is real and what is not, But we were trying to play with that before we had the tools to do that. And Requiem for a Dream, amazingly, has no digital effects either. Now in today's world, it's pretty amazing. If you are shooting a scene between me and Daniel, and as the director, you're not happy with the way he's responding to my comments, maybe that smile he just did was a little too early, because he was a little too clever and he's supposed to be a really dumb character, so you want him to smile later. What you can do is you can split the screen in half now, and you can slow him down, and then I can make the joke and he could smile later, and you could actually change your perception of him as a character. We do that nonstop now, where basically, I'm not happy with one part of a performance, and I can, on Black Swan, there must be 70, 80 times we kind of adjusted the performances by just doing that simple split. But you can do incredible things now. If an actor shows up with a pimple, it's not an issue anymore. It's gone forever. But all the tools you have in Photoshop are now fully available in filmmaking. So it's completely changed. It's also the cost of making movies now is more expensive, and we talk about this. It's more expensive, so you have less time, but you have many more tools to fix things. So it used to be if you filmed something and the boom was in the shot, the mic is in the shot. There's nothing you can do about it. The mic is in the shot, Now it's gone. Like in The Wrestler, if you guys watch The Wrestler, we called them bogeys. If someone, looked into the lens, it was a bogey. Now, anytime someone looks into the lens as a viewer when you're watching it, it's really weird because it sort of breaks it breaks the wall of the illusion, So we have tons of people, and when we were at The Wrestler, we were shooting at real wrestling events, and those people didn't give a shit, so they were just staring right into the camera at times, and even so what we did is we did a very simple thing. We just basically shut their eyes. So people are blinking for a really long time in The Wrestler, and you'll just see a lot of people just like this in the movie. And that's the reason, because we just made their eyes go away. So But if we were shooting that, back in the day when we didn't have those tools, it would have taken a lot longer. So it's a question: what's better, the time or the technology?
Okay, we're going to go upstairs. All right, who's upstairs?
Here, please.
Okay, very up at the top.
Hola.
Hello, Darren.
Here.
My English is very, very bad.
It's okay. I've got Daniel on my earphone.
Okay. Bueno, primeramente.
Did you hear that? I made the translator laugh. That's pretty good. You're not supposed to do that, miss.
Ready?
Okay,
Ready?
She's apologizing. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Bueno,
por favor.
Primeramente, no te voy a mentir, mi corazón que me está palpitando a 1000 por hora. Vengo desde el DF en varios rides, porque realmente eres una inspiración. Yo me empecé a dedicar a esto, a hacer mis cortometrajes, mis mediometrajes por ti. Realmente, ¿qué puedo decir?
Así es.
Eres fantástico en lo que haces. Para mí no hay un maestro en el cine como tú. Así de sencillo. Entonces, bueno.
Okay, let's get to. I'm getting embarrassed.
Mi pregunta es.
I'm going to be the same color as your shirt soon.
Mi pregunta es, me voy a exponer mucho y bueno, ya estoy aquí. Quisiera ver la oportunidad que un día, no importa dónde tenga que ir, pero verte trabajar, que me invitaras a verte trabajar. ¿Me puedes cumplir ese sueño, maestro?
Well, I can't give you my contact information right now because I'm going to get a lot of fucking emails if I do that. So, talk to Daniel afterwards, and he'll give you an email. He'll meet you right over here after the show, okay? All right, later.
Hi, Darren. Here, over here. Here. I have a good one.
Where is he? Down or up?
Here.
Everyone point at the person who's talking.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Hola.
It's a question about a topic about the fountain. We know human being is finite or ephemeral. So do you think we could find eternity when we die? And if you believe life is only a transition to other kind of existence, which is your favorite movie?
That's funny. The exciting thing about The Fountain is it's talking about a lot of ideas that are, they're in some ways very, very basic to who we are as people. But what's going on over there? You okay? You drowning in the crowd of people? You all right? Are you waving for a reason? No? Okay. Talking about eternity, right?
Yes.
So, I don't, for me, The Fountain is for what you take away from it. But, I don't like talking about eternity in the way that most people talk about it. For me, the idea is that it's kind of about recycling,
Yes.
It's how we all become something else. And it doesn't necessarily mean you actually become something else. Just what makes us, our bodies and our spirits, they become something else. So I think that's probably more what that film is talking about. So it's a pretty heavy idea, but it's also a very easy idea. So,
yes.
You don't have to read too much into it. You just sort of have to watch what's going on, and hopefully it comes through in the images, is what we're trying to do.
And which is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, Santos versus the Mummies.
Really?
Of course. Yeah.
Aquí,
Okay,
hola.
a ver, arriba hay otro, aquí.
Allá.
There's a girl up at the top, in
Hola.
the front row.
Hi, I love you.
Thank you.
What advice can you give to the people who wants to start a career in filmmaking?
Oh yeah, that was another question down here about the young filmmaker that someone asked. You know, for me, you know, the most important thing is to tell your own story, you know, and that's what you have to offer is your own story. And I think what I learned is that no matter how strange or how different your story is or how small your story is, that if there's something truthful in it and there's something that is that touches your heart, then it's worth telling. If you want to go tell some bank robbery movie or some serial killer movie or some superhero movie, you know, that's great, but that's a very different thing than what I think you should be doing as a first-time filmmaker. I think as a first-time filmmaker, that's the best thing you can offer is something that's very personal. To look around the world and find people that are interesting characters, and they're hopefully interesting because of something that you can relate to, not just because they're bizarre, but because there's something that makes you feel them. And then to explain that to other people, that's what you're looking for. So if it's your mom or your dad or it's a friend or it's that person, the neighbor down the street, someone that's doing something that is connected and that is human, that's what we all should share in our first films.
Acá abajo.
Hola, hola. Pues también yo vengo de DF y lo que quería preguntarte es, no es tan profundo, pero realmente para mí es muy importante. Hace un momento comentabas que tuviste que bailar ballet, pues un ratito supongo que con Natalie Portman, entonces esta onda de pues, bailar con ella y tenerla como de ¿cómo se llama? De cartón de chelas o esa es una pregunta, ¿qué sientes como hombre cuando estás así? Y la otra, ¿no tienes miedo de que tu virilidad salga a la luz mientras sucede esto?
Vamos a tener que revisar las preguntas.
Oh, wow. You know, it's very important when you work with someone that you have a professional relationship with them. You know, so, you know, Natalie was, for me, a fellow professional, you know. So if I looked at her in any other way, it would actually hurt the film. So it's actually really important to separate that and to be as objective as you can. Luckily, though, that I don't know where you heard the fact that I actually danced with Natalie at ballet, but I didn't do that. You know. And I think ballet is pretty far from salsa, so it's not really a big issue.
Acá arriba.
Hi.
Hi, Darren.
Hi. Over here?
Yep.
A ver,
here?
espérate, vamos arriba primero. Arriba y luego abajo. Y luego voy a pedir las del micrófono de este lado que cruza acá este lado porque tenemos limitados los micrófonos. Después de esta, carga el micrófono de este lado. ¿Quién está arriba? Levanta la mano.
Hi, Darren.
Upstairs.
Okay. As a director movie, you're always busy about so many things that happens while the crew are recording. So my question is, what is the process or the workflow you have to follow with the audio crew to assemble the intention you want to express on the movie? Because I think in Black Swan, the audio and the OST were so important. Can you tell us something about the audio or the soundtrack in your movies? How do you react all those things that we hear?
You're talking about the music?
Yeah.
And also how the crew knows what's going on?
Aha.
Yeah. Well, that's filmmaking. So it's a big thing. But basically, you know, you want to get everyone together as much as possible, and you want everyone communicating, and you want everyone having the same vision for the movie. So there's many, many conversations where all the department heads, the cinematographer head, Maddie Libatique, the production designer, the composer, the costume designer, the makeup department, and you spend as much time as possible together really talking through the ideas behind the movie. And I think it's important as the director as you talk about what the entire movie is about. Hopefully, you know, the movie comes down to some thematic elements, like what is it all about? And then you can go through every scene and talk about what every scene is about. And then if you're working with artists and department heads that can interpret that through their own medium, then they start bringing you things that make sense. So they'll bring you something and they'll hopefully usually be very, very close to what you're sort of approximating. They somehow, so for instance, a costume designer understands that this scene is about Natalie being terrified, and she somehow figures out to reflect that in the clothing. And then the same thing happens in the makeup. And so I really work with department heads that really understand filmmaking, that are filmmakers, that really think about story and think about character, and then hopefully can give me gifts and ideas to add to telling the story, you know. And then when it comes down to the score, it's, I mean, Black Swan was a very unique situation because we had Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, but we wanted to turn it into a horror score. So we were able to look at the actual progression of Swan Lake and then to choose pieces in order that kind of went into the different places in the film. So I would listen to Tchaikovsky over and over, and I go, oh, this is a good music for this. But then Clint would sort of, you know, mess with it a little bit and make it more horrific, and then and try to make it more of a horror film. And then eventually we had a big orchestra play it and record it, and it came to life. Daniel, it's your turn.
All right. How do you go about choosing your projects? Are most of the films that you've made, have they been your initiative or your team's initiative?
Unfortunately, they've always been my initiative. And I say why that's unfortunate just because I think I just have a hard time connecting with it unless it's got some type of root energy connected to me. So there's always something about the material that connects to something that I've been thinking about for a long time. So Requiem for a Dream, the author Hubert Selby Jr. was someone I looked up to for a long time and I read as a very young adult. It's very strange, young adult literature, but I read it as a young guy. And then, Black Swan, my sister was a ballerina, so I was connected to it. Wrestling, I watched wrestling when I was a teenager. So everything sort of connected to something. So that's where all those ideas came from.
Well, hi, I am over here.
Donde? Oh, yeah.
Here. My name is Loida. Call me Lois if you want it. Okay. I have only 2 questions. The first, what do you think about the Mexican talent? And the second, I'm a writer. I like writer books, and I will study cinematography. But I want to know if in one future will you like or will you can work with one of the new talent Mexican, and special if you in one future can you see my work and tell me if I can do something with my things.
What do you do? You write?
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to read stuff.
No, but
because I'm so busy.
I want to cinematography.
You want to be a cinematographer?
Yes.
So you take pictures?
Yes, and I do cortometrajes. No sé.
Oh, great.
Cortometrajes.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. What was the first part of the question?
how do you feel about Mexican talent, Mexican cinematographers, not cinematographers, filmmakers?
Well, I'm lucky. When I was in Mexico researching the fountain. We had been down in Guatemala and Honduras, and we went down to Chiapas and to Palenque, and then I came to Mexico City, and I said, I am not going to leave Mexico until I finish this draft. So I stayed at a hotel in Mexico and just was writing. This is, I guess, back in 2002 or 2003. And somehow I got a call from Alfonso Cuarón, and he was like, oh, I hear I'd never met him before, but I loved The Little Princess. It was one of my favorite films at the time. And Alfonso was like, oh, I have a premiere of a new movie. I'd love you to come here in Mexico City. And it turned out it was the premiere of Y Tu Mama Tambien, which was one of the great screenings. I've been to many, many great screenings. I was in the Karl Marx Theater in Cuba when Buena Vista Social Club played. So I've seen some good screenings, but this was one of the best ones. It was I don't know what theater, but it was 3,000, 4,000 Mexicans in Mexico City. And when Gael and Diego made out, it was quite a scene. I mean, people went crazy, because it was the first time they had seen that moment, and it was out of control. It was great. So I became friends with Alfonso, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I think he's a tremendous talent. And through him, I got to meet Inarritu and Del Toro. And they're just incredible. I mean, the talent that's coming out of Mexico is, it's unbelievable. And I think, there's just, we see it in the world cinema scene, all the different films from, I haven't seen Heli yet. That's played here, right? I didn't miss it. Oh, really? I'm looking forward to that. So there's a lot of exciting things. I think tonally, I'm similar to a lot of the Mexican work. I think there's... you were talking about it. Everyone here likes The Cure, and I love The Cure as well. Is that true? Everyone likes The Cure here? He just told me that. So yeah, there's a lot of great talent. And I would just say, just keep taking pictures. Keep taking pictures, and now you can do such amazing stuff. It's so easy to get your hands on something that you can make cinema quality images. There's so many different great cameras to work with. So. Just keep working. Buena suerte.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Darren. Hola.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Oh, hola.
So you were saying that you make movies that relate to people, correct? So
maybe.
So how do you develop the concept or the idea with gender in your work?
Can you repeat?
Sure. How do you develop the idea or the concept of gender in your work, in your stories?
How do I get the concept of gender?
Yes.
Or how do I deal with gender in my work? Is that what you mean?
Yes, like how you issues and topics about gender in general.
Well, I grew up in a household with a really strong mother and a big older sister who used to beat the heck out of me all the time. So, I think I think I try to tell balanced stories as much as I can and try to be truthful. It was interesting because Black Swan, took a lot of critique from mostly male writers that had fucked up gender politics, and then female writers actually were very connected to it. So I think when you deal with, when we were dealing with ballet in the ballet world, there's a lot of complicated issues there, how women are presented and how women present themselves in that world. And we just tried to be open and as truthful to what we found. And I think Natalie was able to bring a lot of her understanding to it. And I think you just try to be truthful and honest to what you're observing. And sometimes, I think Hubert Selby Jr., who wrote Requiem for a Dream, said it's called a cliche for a reason, because it's called a cliche because it's often true, is what he said. So sometimes when you do things that people think are cliche, there's certain truth to it. So I think as long as you're not bending things and consciously trying to make things tell a certain story that isn't truthful, that's when you get into trouble. But if you actually witness it and remain open to it, I think it's okay. Does that answer your question, what you were asking, or not really?
Kind of, I guess.
Okay.
Let's go. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Hi, Darren.
Hi.
Hi, Darren.
Hi there, Darren. Here, over here. Yeah, sorry, I've been chasing the mic all over the place. First of all, I want to say I have nothing to do with filmmaking other than I really like watching films. And so we're probably back to the weird questions from the beginning. Ever since I saw Pi, there was a bit. It was about the science background of the issue. The guy can predict, like the stock market to, 7 decimal points or whatever. But if you ever talk to, I don't know, your friend Ari, that actually is impossible because of chaos theory, complex physics, whatever. So I'm not complaining about accuracy. It's just that it detracts from suspension of disbelief. So how would you have handled that differently so that for some of us with a science background that would have worked?
There are a lot of people that spend a lot of money and a lot of time looking for patterns in the stock market. And there's a lot of people that are successful with it. They use all different types of algorithms and math formulas. Now, we pushed it a little further because we started to talk about that you could find the name of God in a bunch of data collection. And that's where you sort of go into the fantasy element. So, there'll always be a few people that aren't going to believe certain things, and if that stopped you from enjoying the movie, I'm sorry. I could offer you $5. But otherwise, just maybe next time sit back and enjoy and go with it.
No, it's all right. I enjoyed it. It's just
good.
I was thinking,
always,
how would you have done it differently?
I knew we were pushing the edges of reality, but we tried to sort of build enough things so that most people went with it and enjoyed it. But I've met many people over the years who subscribe to that idea that you can find sacred geometry in those ideas in the patterns. And so do I fully believe it? I think we gave both arguments because you have the old guy Saul in that movie talking about how you could find patterns everywhere. So we tried to sort of fight the argument from both ways, but there are definitely people that find patterns all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what you were talking about at the beginning, that you said that you went just beyond what was scientifically plausible.
Did you buy that Superman Can Fly this summer? Or was that people...
I bought it, but
Yeah, you see?
Yeah.
You bought that guy came from another planet and flew, but I didn't
But I don't buy that they look exactly like... Yeah, sorry. But it's because he's been around since 1938. And
so give me a little time.
We're enculturated. Exactly.
Thank you.
And last question. This is, as a fellow anthropologist, the wrestler, it's the movie that looks, your movie, one of your movies, that looks the most like an ethnography. It's more realistic, grim and gritty, naturalistic. And you said something about budget issues that maybe force your hand on the look of the film. But other than that, usually you don't have a lot of movies that come out of the U.S. that show the U.S. Without any landmarks. The Statue of Liberty there, the flag hanging in the background. Everything is sunny. It's like perpetual summer. It was just bleak. So was that a conscious decision?
Well, there are a lot of films like that in America, but there's a huge world of independent films. Most of our exports of American films are, yes, the Hollywood films that are very similar to what you say, where you have a big fight scene at the top of the Statue of Liberty. But we do have a long tradition of films in America that are, more complicated than that. Unfortunately, they don't get into.
They don't make it big.
They don't make it big. So we were lucky that we broke out of the bubble and got to be seen around the world. But that was the film. I do come from, and I did study anthropology, and I did watch a lot of ethnography and ethnographic films, and so I like cinema verite. I was very interested in that filmmaking style, and so I really wanted to bring that style to the film. And while we were making the movie, we said this is more than just making a film about a wrestler. It's really making a film about Mickey Rourke playing a wrestler in the movie. So he really became the subject. And there's scenes in that movie where he's actually sleeping, and we just turned on the camera because he passed out in the middle of the day, and that's him in the movie sleeping. And then as he's waking up, I'm like, Mickey, don't look in the lens, just make believe you're the ram and grab your hearing aid, and he did it. So it was that type of, it was a very enjoyable process. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Perdón, ¿quién es el voluntario encargado de este micrófono? No, espérense. ¿Quién es el voluntario encargado del micrófono? Ya el público lo tiene. Ok. Checa, hay varias manos levantadas aquí. La última pregunta de arriba y lo vamos a bajar el micrófono porque ellos llegaron temprano y ustedes no. We're bringing the microphone down because these guys got here early, like hours early, and these guys were late.
I thought you just were the poor people.
No, they're not. They're just late.
You're just the lazy people.
Right. We're bringing that microphone down.
You came all the way from Mexico City. Forget it. You're not getting my email.
And he was late.
Where were you 4 hours ago? He's right. There he goes.
So we got one more question from above, and vamos
Sorry
a bajar
about
ese
that.
micrófono de arriba a abajo cuando termina esa pregunta.
Not here.
She's up there.
I sort of feel a little bit like James Lipton and Inside the Actor's Studio here. So for that, I have a question for you. I have, thanks to Google, the 10 questions that James Lipton asked at the end of every show.
Oh, you can't do that to me.
Or I can ask you a question about film and the process.
You just asked me your own question.
Okay, so my question for you is, you're a very creative person with a lot of opportunities to pick many different films. But as you know, like creative ideas, well, they're cheap. What counts is execution. And so my question for you is, how do you arrive at the process to pick an actual film that you decide you want to dedicate so much resource and time to? Because I'm a creative person and often I get distracted from one project to another. So what keeps you focused?
I think it's just the idea. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's definitely something about an idea sticks in my head and keeps me going till through the 2, 3, 4 years that you need to make. I talked a little bit about it, so I don't want to repeat. Maybe you came late to the show. You didn't hear it. But anyway, so really it's something in the material, something in the characters, something in an idea of a shot keeps you going and makes you want to do it and go through all the pain it takes to bring a film to life. Down here.
Hola. Aquí. Aquí.
Where are you?
Hi. We have 2 questions. First of all...
Where are you? Stand up? Oh, there you go. You're standing up.
Hi.
Sorry.
Hi.
That wasn't on purpose. I couldn't actually see. It's very bright.
So, your education as a filmmaker couldn't be enough. What other knowledge have helped you in your work? Yeah, that's it.
I think everything, you know. I mean, it's life, you know. You just try. I keep going back to this thing, but when you're working with actors and you're working with people and you're actually about to shoot something, you look at it and then you sit there and you think if it feels real, you know. If it feels as truthful as it possibly can, if all the details are taken care of, if there's anything distracting that's going to distract the audience, you know, you just look at it and just try to be open and truthful to the moment. That's really the job. And then if it's not, you just figure out a way to fix it without offending anyone that's, you know, responsible for something.
Hi, Darren. And what happens if you don't have like a big budget to make a film? Like, how do you make a plan B? Like with the wrestler or with the fountain that you didn't have enough money to make it, but you made great films.
Thank you.
So how do you?
I mean, it's always you never have enough money, and if you have enough money, it's actually probably a curse, because I think not having enough money makes you think about what is the most economical way to do this. So you try to create a style, either visually or through design, or through who you hire to try and figure out something that could fit within the box. Basically, the money puts you inside of a box. Yes. But then you want to get in the box and you want to keep pushing as hard as you can against the edges and keep testing them as much as you can, because the goal is to get as much as you can up on the screen. So that's it. I mean, when we went from an $80 million budget on The Fountain to 35, which still seems like a ridiculous amount of money, it was a really hard job because we had to make it for less than half the money. So I had to rethink what we could accomplish for that film.
You work with microscope thing, right?
Yeah,
like
all that stuff. Well, that wasn't really, that may not have saved us money. That was, she's talking about how we did all the digital effects in The Fountain. We shot them through a microscope. They're all like chemical reactions. Yeah. And that actually might have been somewhat more expensive because it was actually filming it, but it definitely gave a more unique look to the film and made it something that you've never seen before. And that was really important to me through the whole process to hold on to. The same thing with the black and white and Pi. It would have been a lot cheaper to shoot that film in color because very few labs in America were processing black and white film at that time, and so it actually cost more money to process that film than it did color. But I knew that I wouldn't have to worry about the colors of the set and the colors of the wardrobe, and makeup would be more forgiving, so I would save money that way. And it would also immediately put a sort of style on everything. So that was why we chose the black and white there. Everything, you just have to make every choice a purpose and be realistic with what you have and not try to go beyond. Because if you just try to go beyond without being responsible, it'll end up not being that good.
Thank you, Darren. Big fan.
Should we come back to Danny, or do you want to do another?
What would you consider your dream project? Is there a particular book or oral tradition or myth that you would love to see realized?
I've been dreaming about doing Noah's Ark since I was 13. So it's been a long time, and it's coming to life now, and it'll come out in March 2014.
You did a graphic novel with Ari and an artist named Nico Henriksen. Is this something that you're doing now for all of your films that you do anyway, and you decided to put it out, or was the original?
We did the Fountain comic book when the Fountain fell apart, and we never thought that it would be a movie. And then it started to become a comic book, and then it came alive as a movie, and it became a race between me and the artist Kent Williams, who would finish first. And then the same thing happened with Noah. We wrote the Noah script about 5-6 years ago, and then we couldn't get it made at the time. And so I was like, oh, this could be a good comic, and we got together with this artist named Nikos Henriksen, and he's been drawing, and now the full comic will come out when the film comes out.
Cool.
Yeah.
And regarding comics, you had an opportunity to direct The Wolverine, but that never came to pass. Do you think would you ever adapt another comic or create an original comic?
Maybe. I mean, there's so many superhero films right now. I don't think it really needs me anymore. There's so many good filmmakers working in the medium and doing great stuff. And I don't know, if something interesting came along, maybe. But I've been very happy and lucky to be able to get all these different films made that I want to get made. So, for me, like Oliver Stone in the late 80s and early 90s, all those films he made were only made because of him. And so that's an interesting goal, is to try and make films that you really want to make.
And you had an opportunity or on a couple occasions, you collaborated with Frank Miller. Are any of those projects still alive? Or?
No, that's a long time ago. Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, we're about up to the hour here, so we're going to take 1 or 2 questions more. Okay. Vamos a tomar dos preguntas. ¿Dónde están?
Aquí.
Yo.
Darren?
Okay, allá arriba.
How important to you is the catharsis in your work? The same question, but in other words. In some way, you try to make a person who saw your work understand something that can make him a little bit better as human and person?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really trying to preach. I'm just trying to tell good stories. And that's been the main sort of thrust of the work is just to tell the right story for the right character throughout. You know, I'm not sure, you know, I don't, you know, if people take away things that they talk about afterwards, that's a great bonus.
Hi.
Hi.
Para ser el director que eres en este momento y te encuentras, tuviste que tener maestros o influencias en la historia del cinema. ¿Cuáles serían esos directores que han influido en tu vida y en tu carrera?
Well, there's a lot of people that have influenced me beyond my teachers. I've had some great teachers. I'll tell a quick story. When I was in 7th grade, I had this amazing English teacher named Mrs. Freed, and we came into class and she said, "Okay, everyone take out a piece of paper and write something about peace." And I ended up writing a poem about Noah and the story of Noah, and it turned out it was a contest for the UN. And a few weeks later, a fat envelope came back to the class, and Mrs. Freed said, "It's a fat envelope, open it." And it turned out I had won this contest, and a few weeks later I was reading the poem at the UN. And it kind of gave me this, you know, belief. I never thought of myself as a writer, but I had sort of written something that people were responding to, so I started thinking about that. And Mrs. Freed told me when I write my first book to dedicate it to her. So then when we were working on the comic book for Noah, I decided to dedicate it to Mrs. Freed because she asked me to do that. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try and track her down and see what's going on with her. So I called up my mom, who was also a public school teacher. I said, do you have any way of getting in touch with Mrs. Freed, you know, my 7th grade teacher? And she said, oh, it was a different district, but I'll make some phone calls. And then pretty soon I got her phone number and her email. She was retired in Florida. So I got in touch with her, and I sent her an email telling her that I had written this book, and she was a teacher now. She did not remember me at all. But she did remember the girl who I was competitive with, this girl Robin, who was this little red-headed girl who sat next to me, who was a bit smarter than me. And she's like, I remember Robin, but she didn't remember me. But anyway, But then I reached out to her, and she was all excited when she found out I had done Black Swan and that one of her students was reaching out to her. And we started talking, and I went down to Florida, and we had a meal, and she was still a very eccentric lady. She would wear all pink, and she used to drive a pink Mustang. And she was still driving a pink Mustang. It was pretty cool. And so then when we started to make the movie, I was like, Mrs. Freed, you should come by the set. And she came up to New York, and she visited, and she drove up in her pink Mustang. And all the Teamsters were like, oh, Mrs. Freed, park the car there. And we kind of gave her the, you know, star treatment. And then we were doing a scene where I needed a wicked old witchy character to be in the movie. And I was like, oh, Mrs. Freed, you want to be in the movie? So we stuck her in makeup, and we took out one of her eyes, and she gets to act with Russell Crowe. And so it was kind of funny how it all kind of came around. And now she actually goes and she does storytelling stories, where she goes in front of audiences and she tells this story about reconnecting with her old student and stuff. And you know, the kind of thing that she talks about is how important it is as a teacher to be recognized by your students. So I would encourage everyone here to kind of reach out to that teacher that had an influence on them as kids and make a contact, because those people are really the heroes in our world that don't really get enough recognition, I find. So for me, I would say that's for me is those different teachers that push me along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muy bien. Vamos a parar ahí con ese último que fue... No, a ver, agarra el micrófono. Vamos a parar ahí. Vamos
One last question, please.
No problem.
All right, one last question.
That was a good way to go out.
It was. I thought it was an excellent ending. It better be a good question.
Yeah, it better be good.
I hope it's good.
Yeah.
I'm studying drama, and I felt really identified here.
Keep waving.
I'm like very
Oh yeah, hola.
Okay, I'm studying drama. I felt really identified with the character of Black Swan, with this power that is dark and is coming out. And I never thought that you could do it through ballet, because it's very tough and it's not like a contemporary dance or like more passionate. So how do you come out with this idea of doing it through ballet?
It's a simple story. It was my sister was a dancer, and I grew up, she was a big ballet dancer, and I grew up without understanding anything about it. And so I was like, there must be an interesting world there, and I just started researching it. And then when I looked at the Swan Lake story, I saw this great idea of the double, which is, I was always interested in Dostoevsky's The Double. And so connecting those two stories was an exciting way to go. And just getting that darkness coming out of the light, which is a terrible way to finish this thing. But I want to thank everybody for coming here. It's really flattering and touching. And I wish you all good luck. Buena suerte.
Queremos recordar a todos que la clausura es a las 6 de la tarde aquí en el auditorio. Vamos a pasar público en general a las 5, 5 y media para que lleguen temprano, para que les toque el lugar. Estamos abriendo mucho del foro para público en general, ojalá nos acompañen. Y luego en la noche en el Teatro Juárez estamos presentando la película Only God Forgives a las 9 de la noche. No va a haber la alfombra y sí va a haber acceso por público en general. Darren, we want to thank you so much for being here. Darren's busy. Gracias, Darren.